I received a call in December saying, hey, things aren't likely going the way we planned. Yeah, so Jonathan Summerton, originally from Kissimmee, Florida, native Floridian, and now currently living in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Yeah, so I guess one of the big stories that I think I've mentioned to you a couple times before was the F1 test, which was very hush-hush, kept quiet under wraps. It was part of USF1 plan for moving forward. Of course, they were looking at using some of their parts on the USF1 car, so we ended up doing a test from a driver standpoint. But I mean, the lead up to that was, we'd started talking USF1 earlier on in the year, grew with the team, Peter Windsor, Ken Anderson, both of them, and then of course a few others, Chad from YouTube, and a couple other people involved. Everything was going really well. I was part of the team early days. I was moving to Charlotte, North Carolina around November, and had everything all planned out, moving there, getting ready for Australia in the new year. And I received a call in December saying, hey, things aren't likely going the way we planned. And that was kind of it. And as you can imagine, getting that call was definitely a hit to the gut. And of course, finding a ride the next season was also a tough one, just because all seats had been filled. In F1, nobody really had anything available at that time. So it was back to the drawing board for me. Pretty much everything that's been reported on USF1 is everything that I would say is I've known. Is there some stretch of truth? Yeah, always. Media loves to bring some extremes to it. But the reality is they had everything ready to go. The team had built majority of the things. Yeah, there were some developments. The tub needed to be tested, and some of the other access points for different implementations of products involved in the build. But the reality is, I would say they fell short on cash, which then of course started impacting other areas. As you know, an F1 startup from scratch is not cheap. People seem to think 50 million goes a long way. It doesn't. You hear the budgets of some of these bigger teams, and that's not starting up. That's a running operational team. So think of startup, you have to start from scratch. Yeah, you get some development work from Ferrari because we were talking with them about partnering. You have some engineers who have experience. But again, you've still got the wind tunnel testing. You've still got the parts manufacturing. You've still got the build of things. It was towards the end of the season. And I'd been racing, got home, and literally got a phone call saying, hey, you're heading back out to Italy to test at the Ferrari track. And I was like, okay, where, when? They're like, well, we booked your ticket. You're heading out tomorrow. And that was basically it. So it was, I didn't really have a chance to process it. I think when I got there, that was when it all started processing. Yeah, so it was Ferrari's test track. I think it's Fiorano is their private test track. And yeah, it was very unique, to say the least. Like I said, it was kept quiet internally. There were, I would say, the essentials to running the car there. And that was it. There was nobody else there. No one was aware of what was going on, but we just came in, did the test, and left straight away. So I gotta say, getting prepped for the car was pretty intense. Not having really spent much time seeing the steering wheel, etc. We had basically 48 hours before the test to do everything, make a seat, get ready, and that was kind of it. It was the 2009 Ferrari car that I was driving, and I mean, I believe they were the V8 engines still at that time. So yeah, it was amazing to hear the roar behind you, or should I say roar, the scream behind you. Very amazing power, braking, like I said, all the buttons in the world on the steering wheel. Sometimes, you know, it was an overload of information for me on that steering wheel, but, you know, going through the gears the first time, the acceleration, the braking, you know, you put your foot down, should I say, you know, you're a racing driver, you put your foot down, but you still have that hesitation to go full throttle. And that first lap, you go full throttle, it hits a different beat, should we say. You know, I gotta say, going out the first laps or two laps, you know, I don't think I ever really hit full throttle. I mean, yeah, you did from time to time, but when you're accelerating out and using the full acceleration curve and everything from that standpoint, when you actually started getting into the rhythm and what I would say the heart of the engine and the power band, amazing. Nothing can compare to that. I mean, I've driven pretty much everything outside of an Indy car, and yeah, there's nothing that compares to that. Just pure power, pure adrenaline rush that you get from a screaming engine behind you. I used to think A1GP sounded great, which they did sound great, but the roar was, I think, around 10, 11,000 RPM. These engines were, you know, 15, 16 plus RPM, and it's just a different power band. And then short shifting. I mean, I must have short shifted multiple times. They were like, you still got more RPM, just use it. Like, it's screaming. You know, the reality is you're there to test and learn. Of course you want to impress, but at the same time you realize that this isn't an opportunity everybody gets. And yeah, you don't want to make mistakes. So yeah, you're going to push the car. Were you going 10/10s? Definitely not. I can't say that. I was still learning the car majority of the day. Before lunch, I gotta say, I still hadn't figured everything out. I came back into the lunch break and was asking tons of questions about all the different settings on the car, what I can change, what can we do from a setup standpoint, to do a little bit of changes here and there. But overall, yeah, it was a fun test. I learned a lot and gave me what I would consider the basics of getting into F1 and understanding what the car should feel like, what's a good car, how the power curve was, etc. So I think really, like, there's quite a mix of different emotions, feelings, etc. You know, being at the end of the season, I was lucky enough to have the neck muscles from the full season of driving. Will I say there was some soreness the couple of days after? Yes, but definitely the biggest notice of difference that I've had between any car I've ever driven would have to be the braking. The brakes are phenomenal. The G-forces and loads are extreme. It's something you can't prepare anyone for, I would say, in general testing. I mean, maybe GP2, a full season of that might help shift things or do things a little differently. But even to this day, I've heard multiple GP2 drivers or F2 drivers now that had issues with the braking points just because it's so powerful. The G-load's cornering, of course, it's high, but I guess it's kind of what you'd expect, way better than everything else. But of course, you've also got your head pads that are pretty close, not really moving around. But I mean, yeah, it was definitely a phenomenal feeling, and to get up to speed. Definitely took a few laps to get used to all the buttons, all the different things you have to get used to with a new car. But overall, it was a fun and enjoyable and memorable experience.